Liverpool is a city of culture, with a forward-thinking and tightly knit community, a great history and a bright future. But recently, these streets have borne witness to a crisis, one that has swept up and down the country. A massive rise in homelessness has caused great concern nationwide, and its severity has been all over the news.
The council had to declare a homelessness crisis, which, a state of emergency almost, which is we've never seen before. We've had bad periods, bad winters particularly, but I think for it to come to that point where the council leader is having to kind of come out and say this is a state of emergency now, it shows how bad things have got, and it was the culmination of multiple different factors. I described it as a kind of perfect storm of different factors that came together and reached this kind of horrible nadir which left so many people at risk.
Liam has been at the forefront of reporting for this crisis, and in December he joined a prominent charity on the front lines. The Whitechapel Centre is Liverpool's biggest homeless charity and shelter, and with the rise in demand for their services, CEO David Carter has growing concerns.
In September, we recorded the single highest level of people sleeping rough in the city ever. It was 170 people in 1 month, so not 170 occasions. There was over 500 occasions, but in terms of unique or different people bedded down for one or more night. Obviously, people don't bed down every night. We find solutions for people, but 170 people found themselves bedded down, sleeping rough.
These harrowing numbers paint a picture of a multifaceted issue, a knock-on effect of a separate crisis.
Well, over the last year, 18 months, what we've seen nationally, I suppose, is the emergence of a housing crisis. And I suppose for us as a homeless and housing organisation, that's epitomised by an increase in the number of people coming through our doors, experiencing homelessness or at imminent risk of being made homeless. And therefore what we've seen is that significant increase of people presenting, significant increase in the number of people visibly homeless. In Liverpool alone, it's been 40.1% increase in the number of people sleeping rough.
Ultimately, a big reason for this is because we're in a housing crisis. When people are building homes, they're building these luxury homes because they know that they'll make money from that. And ultimately, my opinion is we need to build affordable housing. And to go even further than that, we need to build council housing. So it's real affordable housing that the council's got control over and can actually ensure is affordable for local residents.
I've done so many stories about social housing in this city where it's just not fit for human habitation, and it's mouldy, it's dark, it's damp, and the social housing companies say they haven't been funded enough to kind of make the repairs. I mean, Liverpool Council is a specific case. It has so few actually council owned properties, so it really can't do a lot about its own crisis here. And as I say, that you add in these other factors: the cost of living crisis, soaring rents, the mortgage crisis we've seen, particularly following Liz Truss's premiership. A lot of landlords are actually withdrawing from the market. They're either selling their properties or they're raising their rents, and people can't afford that.
The single biggest cause for the increase in homelessness is people being evicted or asked to leave private rented accommodation through things like Section 21 notices, which are no-fault evictions. Basically, private landlords selling up and getting out because it's not profitable for them and it doesn't work for them. The housing crisis hasn't just happened. The housing crisis has been coming for the last 30 years. If you don't invest in social housing, if you don't invest in the different forms of housing tenure, then clearly it gradually restricts what people are eligible for. And at some point, there comes a point when there isn't enough to go around.
Many people, homeless or otherwise, are struggling greatly with poverty and don't know where their next meal might come from. The North Liverpool Food Bank, located in Clubmoor, have been facing this crisis across multiple fronts.
I oversee the food team here. We coordinate 11 food banks within the north of the city, and we coordinate 8 community pantries as well. We rely heavily on donations from the general public to get the food in, to be able to supply the food within the food banks. So when people come to the food banks, they're usually at the point of crisis. So what the food banks then do is give people an emergency parcel, so 3 days worth of emergency food, really, just to get them through that crisis period. So we rely heavily on those donations coming in from the public. So when the food is donated into us from the general public or organisations, it comes into the warehouse here. So a standard food bank parcel is food, it's store cupboard foods, long life food. So we also get toiletries and like toilet rolls, nappies, sanitary products, because obviously people need that as well. So that it comes into the warehouse, and then our volunteers are super volunteers, and we couldn't possibly do what we do here without the help of volunteers. We rely on them heavily. So they will sort the foods and they'll date sort it, they'll make sure that it's in date, and they'll box it up.
But despite the work being put in, North Liverpool Food Bank have themselves been struggling in recent times.
Pre-COVID and pre the cost of living crisis, really, most of the donations we got, we were able to send out to the food banks and they covered those parcels, whereas now it's not even touching the sides. So now obviously food bank usage is increasing. Our donations are decreasing for a number of reasons, really. Obviously people are struggling themselves. The cost of living crisis hit a lot of people hard, so people are finding that they haven't got that extra amount that they can donate themselves. So unfortunately we're having to purchase food in now, so we're on average purchasing £2,000 worth of ambient food a month just to ensure that our food bank parcels are fulfilled.
Empty food crates stacked behind the facility demonstrate that these are hard times, and another Liverpool charity, the Paper Cup Project, has been facing similar issues.
So our charity supports people who are experiencing homelessness, and we have a coffee shop in the city centre where people who are homeless can come and get themselves a hot drink, get themselves a bit of food, and we do that by offering a pay it forward system. I started off the project there was myself and one other lady, and we used to go around town with a trolley just with food, a bit of food and some hot drinks like flasks. And we used to just go around and chat to people who were homeless and see if they wanted a sandwich and a cup of tea. We got quite a lot of people that were interested in volunteering as well. So what started off as 2 people grew into we had around 30 volunteers that used to come out and help. When we first opened, we used to see no more than about 10 people a day used to come into the shop. Now we've got like 3-4 times that amount, and sometimes it comes that we don't have enough pay forwards. With the cost of living crisis, the issue that we're facing at the moment is we've got more demand and more people needing to access the service, but less people able to donate and pay forwards because everybody's watching their money at the moment. So that's kind of been quite difficult for us. As a result of that, all the charities are kind of vying for the same pots of funding. The funding is much more in demand, so it becomes much more difficult to access that funding because there's only so much money that funders have got to give out. You don't want to be in a situation where you feel like you're competing with another charity for money because everybody is doing such worthwhile work. So everybody deserves to have the money that they need. A lot of charities have been picking up the slack of stuff that should be sorted and dealt with by the government. It shouldn't be down to charities to deal with issues because that should, in a normal functioning society, really, charities wouldn't really be needed to fill in these gaps.
With people struggling and charities in a similar situation, questions are being asked of the government as to why this has been allowed to happen. Liverpool MP Paula Barker is the co-chair of the all-party parliamentary group for ending homelessness.
I work alongside Bob Blackman, who is my co-chair, who is obviously a Tory MP. And we look at all forms of homelessness and rough sleeping and see what we can do to try and alleviate that. It's to ensure that there is a spotlight shined upon this extremely important issue.
She has been holding the government to account, and she believes that change is needed if we are to see any progress.
The latest figures are out from DLUC, and it shows that there's now over 112,000 households and over 145,000 children currently stuck in temporary accommodation, and that is a matter of shame for this government and a matter of shame for this country, to be perfectly honest. It's just getting worse and worse across the entire country, if I'm honest, and Liverpool is very much at the stark end of that. The Tory government have not only failed to adequately tackle the homelessness crisis, but have actually created it through over a decade of austerity. And we have seen homelessness rates soar under their watch. We can't have a government that continues to work in silos. We have to have buy-in from every single department for this to be a priority, and that must be led from number 10 down.
So change is possible, but a lot of time and a lot of effort is needed before those Liverpudlians currently without a home are able to sleep soundly at night again.